Well, here we are, folks, and we've got one of America's finest, and we've got Keith. Todd, welcome back, and we've got Keith with Christian Warrior Training. And when Keith first popped up on my YouTube channel, whenever I was streaming, I stopped. I'm like, Christian Warrior, because I watched John Lovell with Warrior Poet Society, so it immediately got me. And I started watching him, man, I was just captivated. I'm like, this is awesome. And when I realized what you do, and I'm going to let you talk about what you do, I immediately reached out to you. And I got to say, Keith, thank you so much, because Keith, it was right now he responded back. That doesn't always happen. And the way I look at this, I say, I gave my podcast to God in October, November last year. And I've said, this is yours. It ain't mine, or it's not mine. It's yours, Heavenly Father. If you want this thing to go, I can only do on my side. You got to work on the other side. So when I reach out and somebody replies back, I'm like, cool. And it's taken us a little bit. I mean, you're a very, very busy, very, very busy man. But anyway, everybody, please welcome. And I am so excited to have Keith on. Keith, welcome to Let's Talk Fortitude.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So on here, Keith, we just tee you up and let you go. I know what you do, and Todd has a really good idea what you do. I shared your stuff with him, and so that he could kind of take a look at it. But if you would just kind of to give us your background, where you're born and raised to start off with, and what your faith and how you come to your relationship that you have, and how you become a police officer and what drew you to that.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in California. Just to be clear, before everybody gets mad, I lived there for my first 50 years. And then when I retired, I decided to move back to the United States. Now I'm in Idaho with the rest of the retired California cops. So I grew up in California. It was a different time back then. It definitely wasn't the place it is now. That's for sure. And I grew up Presbyterian, went to church, was a believer. I remember the earliest you could get baptized in my church was third grade. And I remember I kept telling my parents, I want to get baptized. Like I knew what it was, wanted to get it done. Let's go. And, got baptized in the Presbyterian church, and then, kind of lived my life there. I always wanted to be a cop because my dad was a cop and my great grandfather was a cop. So I'm third generation cop, and it's just what I wanted to do. And I was lucky enough to become a cop in the San Francisco Bay Area in 1989. And, having a career there, I watched California fall apart and kind of go down the path of evil. I got to do a lot of things. I mainly worked narcotics, working plain clothes, undercover occasionally. I did that for a long time, going in and out of the unit, kind of going back to different units. But I did SWAT for 20 years. And like most agencies, SWAT's a supplemental assignment. For us, it was basically, I want to say it was 33 hours a month that you were training, doing stuff, plus your operations on top of that. And so my department sent me to a lot of training, and I got a lot of skills that, I could use to train other people. So I started making a living training other cops. And I've been training cops for 20 years. I did it full-time as a cop. Now I do it full-time in retirement. And like right now I hold a couple contracts with the Department of Defense doing counter narcotic training. And, I definitely have a strong background in training. And when I was a cop, I didn't stop being a believer. I was always a believer. I just became an angry man because I've arrested pastors, I've arrested friends, I've arrested like everybody. And I just became very down on society in general. And plus, when you're a cop, when I first started, it's not like you had Saturday night church or online church. You had Sunday morning.
Right.
And when you're working weekends, like how do you go to church when you're working and you're shagging a call about, some family is fighting because they're addicted to meth and they're abusing their kids, and you can't get into church because you're working, and you just become very down and negative. And I know it's not that way for everybody. That's the way it was for me. And as I was about to retire, I had a significant injury that forced me into retirement but I had 30 years. I had a good career, and my daughter brought me back to church, and her and her now husband, they were dating back then, were very faithful, and brought me back to church. And it was kind of like, man, I don't think I ever should have neglected this.
Right.
And it was a small church of 40. And when I came to Idaho, I had to find a new church, and the church I'm in now, 4 campuses, thousands of people over the weekend. Definitely never been to this kind of a church before. And rebaptized, it's a, teaching church. It is, based off of teaching. It's non-denominational. Love it. Great place. They have a security team, and they're like, hey, do you want, and it was funny when I walk in, I was like, hey, I kind of want to serve. And they're like, oh, well, what have you done? You're like, well, I was a cop. Oh, do you like guns? And I'm like, oh, I love guns. Can't you tell? Right? Like, yeah, I love guns. And they're like, you're a fit for the security team. And I was like, wait a minute. Your only way of picking people is they like guns. That's how you pick security team members. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not right. That's not the right way to pick people. Right. And so I got on the team and learned the job, did it. And I started training. I'm like, hey, let's do some training. And we did some training, and, I eventually kind of took over. We changed the way we do things. We have interviews now when people come on the team to make sure we pick the right people. We have qualifications that are difficult, not difficult to weed everybody out, but to weed out the people that shouldn't be there, right? That are doing it for the wrong reasons, right? And how I got Christian Warrior Training, I was like, you know what? I'm like, we need to do an online training portal for our people. So when they onboard, they can get use of force training and a bunch of other stuff right away. And so I designed this courses.christianwarriortraining.com for my church security team to have this. And I'm like, I should open it up to everybody and let everybody know that this is available so anybody can take these courses for free. And I did not expect the number of people who are going to come through. We're training right now, 2,000 people a month,
Wow.
just through online training. And then I'm really good at social media. I've had social media pages that some people, I originally started my social media pages to violate my department's social media policy, because cops don't have a First Amendment right. And that bothered me, obviously, because I'm a big Second Amendment guy. And so I created some social media pages that were satire in nature, that poked fun of wokeism and policing. And they got big. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people. And so when I started Christian Warrior Training, I kind of slid that into those social media pages, and it took off. So I want to say I started in October is when I started the newsletter, where we started doing a weekly training newsletter to teach people how to do church security. And I want to say since October, I'm going to hit 15,000 this week.
Wow.
15,000 subscribers just since October. So is that 4 months? It's taken off like crazy. My YouTube channel, Christian Warrior Training, I want to say I got monetized in 30 videos. And then, which was very quick if you follow that kind of stuff. And then this week, so next week sometime, I'm hoping I'm going to hit about 60,000 followers. And that's just that's in a year of setting it up. So I'm pretty happy. And then the nicest thing is I've not been comfortable with scripture. Like when we started, people on here don't realize, before we started, we prayed in, and John goes, "Hey, why don't you pray us in, Keith?" And I'm like, "Oh God, no." I am I can go up. I did a live stream this morning, and I made a joke of look, man, you want me to stand in front of my congregation, in front of thousands of people, and then start talking about the gospel? Oh man, please no. I'm not comfortable with that yet. But hey, there's a guy about to start to shoot up the church. Man, I'm in. Send me in, coach. I'm down, right? So I'm trying to get better. So I'm, part of doing the videos is I'll do a little, when I have time, I'll try and do a little Bible study to just get better at scripture. Like, I'm so envious of the guys that can like, you're like, somewhere in the Bible, it says, oh, that's John 12 chapter, and they're like, it's this section and they're quoting it verbatim. And I'm like, dude, how do you do that? I'm like, and I know it's like a lifetime of reading and memorization, but I'm like, I want to be like him. I'm not there yet. I'm still trying. So, I did YouTube to like, number one, tell people about church security and share. The government paid a lot of money for me to get this training. And I want to continue to give back because look, people don't realize there's a correlation between law enforcement and what you guys are doing in church security. No, you're not going to be out making arrests and doing that kind of stuff, but you're protecting people. That's what cops do. And there's a lot of things there. And part of that is approaching people and, say, hey, what's going on? And being like, I always call it the enhanced greeter. Like, the greeter at your church, like, hey, welcome to the church. And you're like, man, this lady's so nice, right? We want you to be the enhanced greeter. We're like, man, this gentleman's so nice, but he's got a gun and he's got a plan in case it goes south, right? We want you to be friendly, like, hey, man, how are you? What's going on? Welcome to the church, But you are being friendly. You are being a greeter, but you're also there in case things go south, like in Houston this week,
Yeah.
So that is the quick version of Keith Graves, year 1 through 55.
Hey, so I got since you brought up the Houston shooting, the one guy the older person that was injured, was that a stray bullet that got that person?
All right, so interesting. So I did talk to cops that were at the scene. They weren't the trigger pullers. I would never put those guys in a position and talk to them. So the shooter comes in and is immediately confronted by unarmed security.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. I'm like you. That dude. It's a wonder he's still alive.
Because God wanted him to do something.
Yep, that's a fact.
And God was looking out for him. We all know that. And shooter started shooting and just started going off. The shooter is shooting an AR-15. And from what I understand from people that were there, it was a pitched battle. She's launching rounds with an AR, trying to work her way to the worship center, coming from the door. And then you have 3 cops. So the press is reporting 2. There was 3. And the 3 cops are pressing the fight. But you remember, you're shooting with pistols, and she's got an AR.
Right.
It's not a fair fight.
No.
They're working their way there. She's saying she has a bomb. And then one thing that's not reported on is she sprayed something like an aerosol into the area at the same time. So you got to think, you're a cop. I have an active shooter, has a bomb, and is now spraying this chemical substance. I got to stop him right now. And I got to stop them before they get in the sanctuary where everybody dies. And so you're shooting the best you can, but most people look at it this way. They look at their perception of a shooting as them practicing on a flat range. There is a difference between a flat range and an actual person shooting at you, and you're shooting at them, and you're both moving, and you're both, in fight or flight. And it doesn't work out perfect the way you think it's going to work out. And so I have no doubt that the cops hit that kid because the shooter brought their son with him and used him as a shield for a moment. I have no doubt that kid was shot by a cop. I am sure that it's 50-50. Was that stray bullet that hit that man in the leg? Was it a cop or was it the shooter? Don't know. Doesn't matter.
You're right.
You got an active shooter that is coming in. I mean, is it unfortunate? 100%. And I remember I used to take part in a SWAT exercise. It was you can look it up, Urban Shield. It was 54 hours straight, no breaks. You got to stay up the whole time. And you're literally like, oh, we're going to fly you to this position. Then you go there, do an exercise. And then now you take a boat to the next place and then do that exercise. We have international teams that come. I'd participated for many years, kind of getting broken. So now I'm running a site and I'm running it as the evaluator. And the Israeli commando team comes in, and they have several teams, but the Israelis, I'm fully expecting like these guys are gonna be awesome. I was looking forward to them coming all day. They show up, by far did the best. They just did what took everybody else 5 minutes to even start the exercise, they were done with the whole thing in 30 seconds. They just smoked it. And I had a lot of time with the team leader, and we were talking about my job in America, his job in Israel. And what I learned was, I asked him, I go, what about America? What's going to set us back? And he said, your hostage rescue incidents, your people think that the only acceptable outcome is no regular people are harmed and only suspects are harmed, and only harm the suspect if you have to. Try not to. And he's like, they're setting up for disaster. And he's like, if you have a guy comes in with a bomb in a school full of children and you need to stop him, it's unfortunate, but you might lose some children. You've got to stop him or you're going to lose a lot more. And I listened to what he had to say, and I'm like, man, you're absolutely right. So I've heard some people start going off about the cops. Oh, you shot this kid. If you start hammering these cops for that, nobody's going to do the job, because you are literally asking them to do the impossible. You know, we want a zero outcome. That's not going to be the way it's going to be all the time. So I think it's 50-50 on the man, on who shot him.
I didn't know that she had actually suppressed fire.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard that. I thought maybe that they had finally got, maybe the security guard that she got past that wasn't armed was able to alert others, and they got to her before she started shooting, but evidently that was not the case.
Now, you got to remember, with incidents like this, it's the information coming out is not always going to be the most accurate. The most accurate information is going to come out in 6 months when the investigators release everything. After they've done search warrants, looked at video, because there's going to be phenomenal video on this. There's video all over the place on that. Their security says, I don't want to say the numbers that they have on security. I do know from talking to the cops there. I do know they have the numbers that they have there. You can't really do anything to that church without a cop coming up on you. I mean, you're going to get a couple of people, but you're not going to get very far. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. I am not surprised that she got stopped as quick as she did. I am surprised that only two people in the shooter were shot. That blows me. They did a great job.
You absolutely, they did a great job.
And God was there to help them. And we know, the one thing I get a lot talking to security team members is they want like metal detectors and search people on the way in. And it's like, stop, man. Don't turn us into bunkers. Our church has to be open. People need to be able to come. It shouldn't be like a rock concert, I mean, look at mine, 4 campuses, thousands of people over the weekend. I mean, that's a lot of people. You just need to make sure that your people are trained. And then I've made all this training available to you for free. You can go over and it's online training. It'll get you through until you get formal in-person good training, but it'll get you by, right? It'll make you better than you are. You can't turn your church into a bunker, but we can take a page from the Jews. The Jews do a great job securing their synagogues. You come in the one door that's protected by an armed guy. And then they profile people. Everybody seems to think profiling's bad. Racial profiling is bad. I'm going to stop this guy because he's whatever race you want to throw in there. The profile of it is Texas. It's 110 today with a boatload of humidity. And this lady's walking in with a trench coat. And there's a big bulge there. And I'm trained to recognize firearms concealed. And that person's walking in with a rifle concealed. I think I need to stop him. Right? That's what we're talking about. And your church is still open. Nobody notices that you're doing any of these things. People can still come worship. I'll give you an example. Our church security team stopped somebody last weekend, suspicious car in the parking lot. And they walked up to him. They're like, hey, man, how are you? Notice you're sitting in the parking lot. And they're like, oh, yeah. And it's like, well, can I help you? I'm from the church. I'm here to help you with whatever you need. That enhanced greeter. Right? So their perception is they're being a nice guy. He is being a nice guy, but he's got a plan in case you're here for evil. And they said, do you have assigned seating? Oh, you're brand new. You don't know anything. You're the person we want. Yeah. We do not have assigned seating. Why don't you park? Come meet me. I'm going to hand you off to our welcome team. and they're going to sit you down and give you a place to sit. We'll give you a buddy if you want. And they're like, that'd be great. Thank you. They're just nervous. Right. And
Yep.
you just keep it open so those people can come in, but just have plans.
Yeah, I went to the range today, and
Good for you.
I would love to be able I would love to be able to get certified to teach, not necessarily tactical training, but to teach others proper handling, shooting. Jason Pike is a former Navy SEAL. He has Frogman Tactical there in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
And I've reached out to him. I haven't heard back yet, but I reached out to him. That's something that I feel like I can do when I decide I want to step back from the working full time, and I can, work part time. I'm a type of person. I'm not going to be able to stop working. I hate the word retirement.
Same. Yep. Same here.
I'm not going to be able to come home and sit here in this chair every day. I won't be alive in 2 months. I'll be gone. Just having knee replacement surgery, I thought I was going to lose my absolute mind. But I want to do something, and I want to do whatever I can to help the next person who needs one-on-one training that's not going to feel embarrassed or nervous, that's going to want to learn the proper etiquette of handling and firing a firearm and the seriousness of it. And, that's like Jason says, it's easy to pull a trigger. He said, but what you don't realize, you're responsible until that bullet stops.
Yeah. So every bullet is $1 million bullet.
Yep.
If you miss, it's $1 million lawsuit minimum.
Yep. Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to become an instructor, this is what I recommend. Go find a reputable person to train with. Okay. To learn shooting, go to basic pistol and advanced pistol and get it down. Right. So who do you pick? Okay. Look, just because the guy's on YouTube and everybody likes him doesn't mean, no, I'm not saying anybody specifically, just so everybody knows.
Right.
Like that doesn't mean that, oh, that's the guy I'm going to go to. No, you pick the guy that has the credentials. And the credentials aren't always, I was a Navy SEAL.
Right.
For you, what kind of Navy SEAL were you? Because there's, just like cops, there's good ones and bad ones. Right. Which one am I getting? Right. Go find that good person. And it doesn't have to be Navy SEAL, Ranger. It could be an ex-SWAT guy. It could be, I'll give you an example. One of the best shooters I ever learned from was a competitive shooter. And the competitive shooter was like, he made it up front. He's like, I'm going to teach you how to shoot fast and accurately. The tactics are on you. That was his whole class. I'm like, awesome. I'll deal with the tactics. Teach me how to shoot faster. And he did. And he taught me how to shoot more accurately. It was great, right? Red dot sight class I went to, taught by a competitive shooter, did great job. But then you do want to learn tactics and shooting. And who are you going to learn from? A guy that has been involved in that stuff, right? So after you do that and you learn how to be really good, right? I hate to say this. Okay, but so you got to go to instructor school to learn how to teach people how to shoot, because there is a way to do it. Because I've seen some really bad instructors out there doing some bad things. You got to go to get professional instruction. I hate to say it because I hate them as an organization, but hear me out. You got to go to an NRA school, and I'll tell you why. I went to all sorts of instructor schools. I mean, you name the weapon system. My department sent me an instructor school, and they were weeks-long instructor schools. Really good. Every time I went to court to go testify, so give me your background. Oh, I went to hostage rescue instructor school, sniper instructor school. I've developed basic and advanced sniper schools. I'm going through the whole list. I noticed that you don't have any NRA on there. And I'm like, yeah, because they suck, right? I mean, in my mind, I'm saying that, right? And I'm like, I don't need it. And they're like, okay, but isn't NRA recognized? I'm like, recognized by you guys, not by the professional community, right? But all I watched every time was a jury going,
Yeah.
Right. So do you see what I'm saying? Because you're like, it's one thing to teach your buddy how to shoot. It's another to teach somebody that is now going on the offense at church. Okay. Because you have a lot of people are confusing CCW possession, meaning you have a concealed carry permit. That's for you to protect that. Number one, you shouldn't have to have a permit to carry concealed. Okay. We've pretty much established that through the Second Amendment. But sometimes some governments are tyrannical and require that. Okay. And somehow people look at that as like, oh, you're qualified. No, man, you just got a permit from the government saying you can exercise your Second Amendment. That's all that is. And that's protecting you and your friend. And people are like, well, you got training. I just went through it in Idaho for the enhanced CCW. I just did it for the heck of it. I wanted to see what they taught and what you go through. It was horrible, man. It was 8 hours. It was the most basic shoot. I mean, like anybody can pass it, right? That's not a qualification to now go on the offense. You have an active shooter. You're going on the offense. You're charging 2. You're charging forthwith in a crowded environment to take down somebody shooting inside of a crowded environment. That is way different than you just going out for a night out with your wife and some guy tries to, rob you at knife point or something, right? And when you talk about training those people for that, you got to get people out of that mindset. And then the other thing is it is overpowered with a lot of that training is overpowered with competitive shooting. Well, I'm a competitive shooter. Good for you. Competitive shooting doesn't translate to a gunfight on the street. Okay. There's different. Now I'll never forget. I was going to shoot in the police Olympics. So the police have their own, they can't call it the police Olympics anymore. The Olympic Committee sued us. But it was like basically like our version of the police. And one of the things that they had was this combat shooting. And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm ready. Let's go do it. And I remember prepping up to it. The 3-gun. Oh man, if he's watching this, sorry, bro. Don't mean to slam you. He's a 3-gun champion, but also a cop in my area. But national 3-gun champion. He's sponsored. Like everybody sees him all over the place. At the time, 3-gun champion. And he's showing us how to compete. Like you guys are stuck in this world of, tactics. Let's compete. And I remember he was teaching us stuff that would get you shot in a gunfight. Like you can't come like IDPA or whatever, or IPSC, you can't leave the box, right? But you can lean out, shoot, and then when you're done, then you can like step out or something like that. Then it's okay. So you're going to lean out, you're going to fall. And I'm like, man, I would never do that in real life because if I fall, if I miss, the guy's going to shoot me while I'm laying on the ground, right?
That makes no sense.
No, but you gotta win the fight. You gotta win, the buzzer, get the fastest time. And there's a lot of people teaching that, thinking that correlates to some active shooter event. And I can tell you, like, one of the biggest things we do with what I do when I train people with active shooter training at a church is we give everybody. I like using simunition, but I don't have government money anymore. So what simunition is, for the people who are watching this don't know, it's basically you use your real gun. Like let's say you have a Glock and you're shooting your Glock and it's shooting like it's a brass case with a primer, but a paint bullet at the end of it. Yeah. And so as you're firing, it's cycling like normal and you're seeing the hits and it hurts the person, but everybody's good to go. Right. But they're like $2 a round or something. It's super expensive. So we just use airsoft. And so we initiate it with blanks. We use a 7-inch AR with a blank adapter, and because it is so loud, and we just use that going off. What we notice the minute that goes off with people who have never done the exercise before, people fail to engage to go forward because they're just so overwhelmed. They've never been shot at ever in their lives. They've never seen like the flash and smell the gunpowder in the atmosphere. And they, and you're yelling, I'm like, go forward, go get him. And they're like, oh, and they snap out of it and they go. And, it's their tactics. You can see they're using range tactics as they move forward. They run forward, they stop, and then we give them airsoft guns, right? So they stop and then they fire out in the open. No, even though there's cover right next to them. And then they run again and then they stop. And then so what we've done is change our range program to shooting and moving, using barricades, using cover, talking to each other, moving forward as groups, that kind of stuff. But but it's fascinating. We'll bring in concealed carriers and put them in the church and say, you do what you're going to do as concealed carrier. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to get them. They're all like very braggadocious, right? And the minute that AR goes off, that pat, 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 and it's so, I mean, if you were in the military and you were shooting like, the 20-inch barrel AR, the M16A2 or something, it was like, pew, pew, like a little 22 sound, right? This is a lot different coming out of a 7-inch AR, man. It's pretty brutal. And people really like pause. Like the concealed carriers, a majority of them end out just not doing it because they've never been exposed to it. And it's called stress inoculation. And so what we're doing is we're doing stress inoculation so that they get this repeatedly over and over. So like, as an example, we taught people this weekend how to contact people in suspicious cars. Because a lot of people just want to go, oh, his suspicious car, we're going to walk right up. And they walk right up, like right in the front. And it's like, that's how you're going to die, man. Don't do that. Walk up from behind.
You better make sure you got a plate on if you're going to be doing that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Walk up from behind, knock on the window, go, hey, welcome to the church. How are you? Can I help you today? Right. And there were no gunfights. They didn't know this, but we rigged them up like you might get in a gunfight, and everything was just like, oh, I'm lost, or like whatever, very innocuous. And they were like, I thought I was going to get in a gunfight. Oh, it's like that every day. You never know when it's going to happen. I can guarantee you the next time we do it, I'm going to bring in junk cars and we're going to be battling it out around the junk car. Right. But, it's these baby steps first, like learn how to contact people in the car. Then we're going to teach you, if you get attacked, how to deal with these things. It's just, we need to evolve our training 100%.
So when we were in Charlotte, we used to go to an indoor shooting range, and they had it. I think there was either 2 or 3 different bays. They had 5 or 6 shooting lanes in each one. Well, this particular one that we were in that day, they had a 5.56 or a 2.23. It was AR. They were doing some kind of competition between the employees. Keith, when I tell you that thing was rattling the windows.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People don't realize, and that's what I was going to tell you.
Yep.
Is, so you take your earmuffs off, you take your hearing protection out, because when you're sitting there in church, you don't have your,
Yep.
Nobody's saying, hey, you got your ears, you got your eyes, I mean, we're getting ready to have a shooting. No, when that happens, in your experience, and I'm sure there's got to be something scientific to it. What happens to the average human being out of nowhere as a surprise when an AR or that loud, even a 9mm in an enclosed space? Our church holds like 7, or I think it holds 400, maybe 450, 500 people. So it's not a huge congregation. They have 3 services a day.
Still pretty big.
But even in a facility like that, what happens to the human brain and reaction of people when that happens? Is there does it cause a hesitation? Is it an immediate, response? I mean, what happens if what typically happens in that scenario in those first, say, 5 to 10 seconds when a gun is discharged?
So it depends on the person's level of experience, right? So let's talk to the general public. Okay. I show a lot of videos of active shooters that aren't publicized. So I just because of the network I'm in of cop trainers, people will run across video like, hey, we had an active shooter. Here's the video. And we'll share it knowing that we're not going to share it to the public. Right. Like, I got a picture of the dead shooter in Houston. It was given to me by a cop who knows I'm not going to share it. And it's for training purposes. So we can train other people to say, look, it's not for glorification or anything like that. So I have a shooting at a church, and it was actually, it was in a South Pacific nation. And when that shooting initiated, the guy came in with an AR. And when he shot, everybody got up and ran to a corner. of the church to hide, but there's nothing there. It was horrible to watch. And I watch it. I show it to my church security teams that come through training because I want them to see the brutality of a mass shooter.
Wow.
Okay. In this incident, they all got up out of the room, and there was probably about 80 people in this room where they were worshiping, and they went to the corners. And then they piled upon each other. And the guy just went up to each corner, pop, 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 and just started shooting everybody, reloaded, pop, pop, and just kept doing that. And then went over to the other corner where they were all piled up, still in a corner, and then did the same thing. And they just laid up to get shot because people go into we call it condition black. They don't see anything. Literally their vision is black, right? And we see this with CCW people too. They'll get in that condition black where they're like, and they don't know what to do because they've never trained. We can train that out of you, right? So let's go back to train people. One of the things you get when the gunfire goes off, one of the things you can get is something called auditory exclusion, where you actually don't hear it. And I remember I was in, how can I explain this without, So they're prosecuting cops for murder where I came from for self-defense shootings. So I'm trying to be careful with how I describe things because I have no doubt that they're going to come after some people I was with. There was a shooting where the officer shot. And I remember I see the suspect go down and I was like, oh, he's down. And I remember smelling gunpowder in the atmosphere. And I look over, I'm like, did you shoot? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, oh, like I didn't even hear it. Like you just blocked it out because we were dealing with.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember being my very first time we had an officer involved shooting. I was my first SWAT call out ever. It's my first day on SWAT, and I was so excited. And we ended up getting into a shooting with a guy. And I remember my partner, I was covering another area, and he had an MP5 SD, so internally suppressed MP5, and he just did a mag dump on this guy. And I remember like the rounds going past my vision, and I remember like seeing each one individually. It's like time just goes so slow for you, basically, and it's hard. You got to stay covering. And I just remember, I'm covering my ear, and I'm like, "We good?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're good." And I'm like, "All right, like go deal with what we're dealing with." It was a car, guys that were going to rob a bank. But I see trained people, they do much better. It takes them a minute, right? Especially in a church setting where they're like, "Oh, I recognize that," and then it's like, "Those are gunshots. Okay, I'm going," and they go for it. You watch Houston. There's a good video of what happened inside the Houston church this week, and everybody was running around. They didn't know where to go. And you hear the gunfire, and you can hear that AR going off in the hall, and you see this Houston cop, chill as can be. Hey guys, he's like kind of doing this, like he's guiding them. He's like, he probably hears on the radio what's going on. He's like, yeah, they got it. It's not my problem right now. My problem is you. Come on, everybody comes, and everybody's running around, like don't know what to do. And he's just very chill as can be. I gotta give this cop credit, man. He's just like, all right, guys, come on. And he's guiding his people to a safe place to go somewhere else. That's the guy you want to be. That Houston cop, I have no doubt, has had a lot of stress inoculation training where they train that stress out of you. It's the same thing where they do with special forces, pararescue, Navy SEALs. You just keep doing this repeatedly over and over again. We can do the same thing in a church security team environment. We do that through role playing, through scenario-based, reality-based training, where we use simulated weapons. I use a lot of blanks and blank gunfire. Our range training when we do it is realistic, based off of like we'll have an incident just like the Houston thing is going to come up as one of my active shooter scenarios. We're going to do the exact same thing. Spray a substance, claim you have a bomb, and you're going to use a child as a shield. And they're going to come in, and now they got to deal with it. That's how you train out of people. And you can train that stress right out of them so they don't pile up in a corner.
So do you encourage the churches to have drills of their own with the congregation?
So I have a hard time, like my church. I want them to put in every year we do every September, just before hunting season, because we'll lose everybody during hunting season. We do active shooter scenario, and it's an all day event. I bring in role players. We invite other churches. Other church brings their security teams in from all over, but it's mainly for our people. But I want them to put into the newsletter. We're doing active shooter training. We need role players. If you want to know what to do in an active shooter event, come in. So we can train them too. And they can be through that event and know exactly like, oh, I've been through this before. And they've been trained what to do, which is to go the opposite way of where the gunfire is coming from and get out of our way, or just lay down and let us get the person, right? We have concealed carriers in there. And we give them blue guns. If people don't know what a blue gun is, I wish I brought one here with me. It's just a plastic replication of the gun that you have. We give them a blue gun and say, I want you to do exactly what you do. So I did that. One of the church security team members that showed up was a cop in our area. And I was like, hey, I'm going to incorporate you into this scenario. I want you to be the off-duty cop, and it's going to kick off, and you're going to deal with it. Okay. And he's like, yep. It kicked off right next to him. He put the guy down just like we expected. And then here comes the security team. And it was like a we call it blue on blue, where it's like good people against good people. And they're like, put your gun down. And he's like, and he's a cop, right? But he had never worked undercover. Me, I've been in that situation. I've been taken out at gunpoint by other cops. And I've been like, whoop, I'm a cop. Like, don't touch me, right? And they'll look at you and go, like before I was undercover, and I know it's hard to imagine, but I had a mullet and a big fat goatee. And I got my hands up and I'm like, I'm a cop. And I remember it was an Oakland cop. And he's like, yeah, I know. Like, and I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, he's like, you're a white guy with a nice gun in this neighborhood. Yeah, you're a cop. I'm like, okay. He's like, you don't have a high point. And I'm like, all right, I get it.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? But like, he ended up not identifying himself. And then there was like a standoff, right? And I was like, hey, why didn't you identify yourself? He's like, I've never done this. And I'm like, you ever been plain clothes undercover? He's like, no. He had never been through the plain clothes course where we do these scenarios repeatedly, where you've shot somebody and now the cops come running in, and you're like immediately holster, hey, I'm a cop, right? In your case, hey, I'm church security, right? And they're going to look at you and go, yeah, you look like a normal guy, and they'll give you an assignment.
So you suggest, if you can to involve local police officers, police forces in your training if they're willing to come and participate.
Oh yeah.
Have you found? I mean, have you found that they're very willing to do it, or are they reluctant? What have you heard back?
All right, so there's a little bit of elitism that happens where the cops will be like, well, I don't need to go to their training because I'm already trained. And they envision in their mind there's going to be a bunch of wannabes running around playing cop.
I get it. Yeah,
okay?
I can see that.
And it's hard to get around that. So I'll give you an example. When we were doing dealing with cars in the parking lot, we called the police department to let them know, hey, man, we're going to be out here doing training if somebody calls. And they're like, yep, no problem. And I can tell the beat cops started coming around and circling. And I saw them and I was like, hey, come on. They kept driving like, I don't want to get involved in that. But it's like, yeah, man, come on in here for a minute. I want you to participate. Right. And I want them to know our capabilities and what we're working on. We did active shooter. We call every time, hey, you're going to hear gunfire from the church, screaming, yelling, fire alarm. We're just doing active shooter training. Tell the cops they can come by if they want. And I remember I've trained a majority of the cops in my area before I even moved here, because I'm a national police trainer. And I remember a cop showed up and he's like, wait, you're running this? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, it's going to be awesome. And he like comes in, we have checkpoints. You got to get searched before you come in because we don't want a real weapon in there. So everybody gets searched, sign your waiver form. Everybody sits down. We have a role player brief. And then we have role players that their only job is role playing. And they have experience in because you can get role players that like go off the reservation and do weird stuff. Right. And I remember that we started, and I remember the cop took me to the side and he's like, dude, this is better than our agency's training. And I'm like, tell everybody to show up. You just got to take your gun off when you come in. We can't have a real gun in here.
Right.
and we'll give you a blue gun. He's like, man, we can't do that because it was like busy, and like, it is a big deal to put your gun away. And then there's also for them, it's like, no, man, I got to have my gun with me because they want one of their people. We always have one person that's armed doing Overwatch in case that's the day something that happens. And their whole thing is like, I want my guy doing that, and it's like, it's kind of a pain, we really need the off-duty cops to come in to see what we're doing and stuff. But you should ask them to come. It's doubtful whether they'll really come or not, or in your area, you might be able to get them to give the training. Like where you're at, I mean, you're in America,
Right.
you got good sheriffs where you're at, you got yourself a good sheriff. And I know a lot of good sheriffs. You'd be like, hey man, can you put on this active shooter training for our people so we can close with destroy the enemy? And then be like, heck yeah, we're on it. Like right now, like in my county or my city, they got a detective that's a believer, and he's taken upon himself to go meet with, all the faith leaders in the city to come together and get everybody together and talk, about what's going on. I think we need to do that all the time.
Well, I'm very fortunate. I've got right next to me, my next door neighbor is a Tampa City police officer. Great guy. Then next to him is, I can't remember if he's a deputy sheriff. Then across the street from both of them is a private investigator that works for the county. I mean, there's if you drive through my neighborhood, there are police cruisers, either marked or unmarked, all through this place. So I feel very, which, hey, what they say, where's the place you want to rob next door to the police station? Because they're all gone. So, hey, I want to transition here in our last little bit that we have together that I think is very important, especially for churches that deal with the homeless. You broke my heart, bro, when you told your story.
Yeah.
In a couple of episodes ago about what you're dealing with. Do you care to share that?
Yeah.
And because I think there's a lot that, even if you're wanting to witness to a panhandler on the side of the street that's homeless, you need to hear what Keith is about to say, because I didn't think about it. And if you live in listen, you don't have to live in a major metropolis to encounter homeless people. And this is not to shed an improper light on the homeless. It is what it is. Our heart goes out to those people, and we want to minister to them and to help them. But in order to do that safely, I hope you'll listen to what Keith has to say.
So, all right. So I am definitely not telling you to not talk to homeless people. You're going to be freaked out a little bit about this, but we want you to keep doing what you're doing. So I was part of think of like a street crimes unit, right? So I was a supervisor of a unit that just dealt with street crime, think like street level violence, street level drug dealing, gangs, that kind of stuff. And my guys had a search warrant for a guy that was homeless, dealing drugs in a neighborhood. Now, look, in California, there's nothing that's going to happen to that guy. Like nothing. We'll take him to jail. He'll be released. He'll be out the next day. Not even the next day. He'll be released immediately. And it was one of those things that was like way back burner because we don't have time for this, but it was impacting this neighborhood. So I saw him. Long story short, when I went to detain him so we can serve the warrant, he and I got into a bit of a tussle. And during that tussle, we'll just say bodily fluids were exchanged during the tussle. Okay. And I immediately saw that, and I'm glad this was on body camera. I saw that he was sick. Looked like he had the flu. I'm a germaphobe. Okay. I got MRSA, which is a horrible infection that I got from another homeless guy. And that one, I was in ICU for a week with that. And so I am freaked out about germs. So I immediately see sick, and I'm cleaning myself up, and I'm like, and I immediately interrogate him because I know I'm going to get sick, and you never know what's going to happen. You never know, right? And anybody who's been through workers' comp knows how horrible that can be, and you're trying to get fixed, and it's their responsibility, and they're not. And so I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "Oh, I just came back from he went to the general hospital that is free, the county hospital." And he goes, "I went to the county hospital. They said I have a virus." Okay, I know viruses can be bad, and it turns out he has this specific herpes B virus. And I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be bad." People, it's not genital herpes; it's like another kind of thing. And I'm like, "All right, this could be bad." So we ship him off to jail. And incubation period for a virus, 2 to 10 days. 5 days later, man, I'm sick. I got the same signs and symptoms as him. And I'm like, dang it, he got me. Right. So I missed a couple of days of work. Long story short, I ended up having my head hurt so bad. I thought I was having an aneurysm. So got rushed to the hospital. Doctor comes back and goes, "Hey man, good news and bad news. Good news, you're not having an aneurysm." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." So I have bad news. I'm like, "Oh crap. What could be worse? This gotta be worse than an aneurysm. What is it?" Right. And he goes, "You got this disease called trigeminal neuralgia." And trigeminal neuralgia, basically what happens is an artery gets wrapped around the trigeminal nerve in your brain. So think about your brain, all your nerves come down. There's this one nerve. You got a right and left trigeminal nerve that handles all the sensation and pain from, on the side of your face. And I feel so horrible. I mean, I can't function. It hurts so bad. And I'm like, "Hey, is this, I've never had headaches." I'm like, "Is this a migraine?" And I remember the doctor looked at me and goes, "No, man, this is way beyond a migraine." He goes, "They call this the suicide disease because people kill themselves because it hurts so bad."
Wow.
And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." Right. And I was like, he's like, "Hey, you're going to have this for the rest of your life. And you're probably going to have brain surgery to fix it. And you're probably not going to be a cop anymore." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm expecting brain tumor or what? I didn't expect this part, right? And I'm like, "Wait a minute." Yeah, I can feel it right now. I feel in right here. It's jabbing me. It feels like there's a little knife digging into my jaw, right? And sometimes it'll shift to my ear. Like I think I have an ear infection, right? It'll switch behind my eye. But this kind of general area, and it's debilitating. Okay. And they call it suicide disease for a reason. So I started researching it, and I'm like, I remember, I'm like, could this have been like something like what happened? Right. This has got to be connected to me getting sick to this guy. And the doctor's like, "I don't think so." And I'm like, "Okay." So I research it because I know I'm going for workers' comp because I got to figure this out. And I research it, and I find out a new study that had just been released at the time that this particular herpes virus can initiate this trigeminal neuralgia. And so I'm looking at that going like, "Oh crap." So I want to make for sure. So one of the things that you can do when you get sick as a cop, you can write a court order to get the medical records of the guy that got you sick to make sure that it's not something that's going to cause problems for you for the rest of your life. It's called the Ryan White Act. So we wrote a court order, got it, and he had that exact virus that initiates it. And I remember I had to go to an agreed medical examiner, and he's like, "Oh, ER doctors come in all the time sick from this stuff. You're going to have a hard time proving this." I'm like, "I got body cam footage. Here's the body cam footage." And he's like, and he's like, "Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but that doesn't correlate." And I'm like, "Here's his medical records. Here's my medical records, same virus. And then here's a study that just came out a year ago that says this herpes virus causes this." And he's like, I remember him just looking at me. He's like, "Wow." Like he goes back, and they eventually found that, yeah, that's indeed what causes that. And I've since run across a lot of cops that have had the same issue. And they're like, "Man, I thought I had a bet," because sometimes it's in your teeth. And so a lot of people feel like people have teeth removed thinking that that's what the problem is. And so I remember one cop in Missouri, he's like, "I had teeth pulled. I thought it was from like a dental procedure." He's like, "I did get sick from some criminal just around that time." And I'm like, "Yeah, amazing, huh?" And so I had brain surgery or craniotomy, where they drill a hole in the back of my head. Went up, all amazing. All those nerves coming down. They can find that specific one to move the artery, or they can't move the artery, but they like put padding and stuff in there. Teflon tape becomes your new myelin lining. They put that in there.
Gosh.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. And they patched me up. I tried to go back to work. It wasn't working. So I ended up, thank goodness, the one good thing about California is they have medical retirements for police officers. Most states, if you get shot, like I know cops here in Idaho have been shot in the line of duty that are paralyzed in a wheelchair, and they still have to come to work every day because they don't have any kind of medical retirements for them.
Oh my God.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So I thank God that, he took care of me, financially, as far as like with a retirement benefit and stuff. But it kept coming back. And when I did the video, I debated doing that video, man. Like, see, look, it just did again right there, right? It happens. Like, I debated doing the video, but I realized that it was so bad. It got so bad again that the doctor's like, you got 3 choices. Another brain surgery to clean up what they didn't get. It's called gamma knife, basically radiation where they sever the nerve, but I have to do that every 3 years. And I'm not a fan of radiation, like going into my brain.
Yeah.
And then medication. And the medication, I mean, it sucks. Like you feel like you're high all the time. Like right now, I feel like I'm like an 0810 drinking, but I haven't anything to drink. You know what I mean? And so like right now where you twitch because it hurts, like it feels like it's momentarily somebody just stabs you. And I'm like, I should do the video because so many Christians and so many cops are contacting homeless people and not thinking twice about it. And with the way I teach counter narcotics, obviously fentanyl deals with, you're from West Virginia, fentanyl
Absolutely
is such a problem. I've never seen people as sick as they are. Remember, I've been involved in drug enforcement for 35 years. This is the sickest I've ever seen our drug population ever. And they have the weirdest diseases we haven't seen since the plague, and I see people contacting people without wearing a mask, without wearing gloves. When you come into the ER, how are they dressed? Gown, mask, gloves. And then you'll see a cop just standing there in his patrol uniform, and it's like, no, man, why aren't you wearing protective clothing? Right. I get it. You don't want to wear the gown because you can't access your weapons and radio and all that. I get that. But gloves, mask, eye protection. That's why I keep telling my cops, if you're going to deal with the homeless population, look, prior to 2020, and this isn't like the government telling you wear your mask because like COVID or any of that. It's none of that. It's that you're dealing with a population that is so sick with diseases like the plague, and you name it, everything else. And you're contacting them, you should protect yourself. The skin diseases that they're getting, MRSA, C. diff, you don't want any of that. And I remember as a cop, I was thinking like, I deal with the homeless. I mean, I'm from California. Think about all the homeless we have because we encourage it, right? And I remember thinking like, man, one of these guys are going to get me sick one day that's just horrible. Like, and then sure enough, it happens, right? And so my message in that video was twofold. I wanted to warn the cops to stop doing investigations without mask, gloves, and eye protection. I also wanted to warn the Christian population that you are helping the homeless. You're dictated to do that in the Bible. I agree. You should be out there doing these things, but wear gloves, mask, and eye protection. There's nothing that says shouldn't do that. The other thing was I knew that my followers were going to see at times visible things like, what's wrong with him? Like, why is he twitching? I'm twitching because it felt like somebody just stabbed me in the head. You'd move too, man. That shit hurts. Yeah. My students, I teach cops each week. The last time I had a bout I know I'm going to be on medication forever. The last time I had a bout this bad, I had to stop teaching. And I don't want to stop teaching. I like what I'm doing. And so I have to tell my cop friends at the end of a class, I'll start slurring my words because my brain is just like, dude, you're doing too much. Knock this off. Right. And I just came back from lunch. I know half of they're cops. Half of them are like, man, how many beers did he have at lunch? And it's like, I got to tell them like, hey man, I'm sick. And this is what happened. It's going to happen to you too. And I love it. They all come out like, I'm freaked out now. Good. You should be freaked out, right? This isn't about the government telling you to wear a mask. Okay. Trust me. I ignored that too, that order too, even after getting sick and everything, right? It's like, look, that's not why you're wearing a mask. I'm not wearing a mask because of this fake belief that it's going to keep me safe from the bug. You're dealing with a population that has never been as sick as they've ever been as now. And you should protect yourself. I regret every day, and I said this in my video, I regret every day contacting that guy. I wish I let him go. And I knew better. I knew that my team, like, I looked at it like, look, I was a sergeant. I was leading an elite unit that was doing, like, we're talking about like going after like gangs with, like that are killing each other with, we're doing high level drug stuff. And we got some homeless guy dealing dope in a neighborhood. It was more like I felt bad for the people in the neighborhood and I felt like we should do something. But I knew nothing's going to happen to him. It will do nothing to change this neighborhood. It's just making everybody feel better.
Something that gets me is back in the day, we always heard about what is the anthrax powder or whatever that was supposed to be sent to presidents and stuff. Then you watch a show like Live PD, and they've got anywhere from California. Now they're South Carolina, they're in Florida, you name it. They're everywhere. Pennsylvania. And the one thing that is reoccurring, and no matter where they're filming, is that they have to be so careful not to allow fentanyl to touch their skin.
Yeah.
Is that being overplayed, or I'm just thinking, man, if they can't even touch it, what are these people putting in their bodies now?
So yes and no. So I do teach fentanyl, how to do fentanyl investigations from street level to high level, like cartel level. Look, if you get fentanyl on your skin, just wash your hands because it takes 2 hours for it to get through your skin. So if you can't find a sink with soap, and then
so it's the possibility of touching your eyes or your nose or putting your hands in your mouth or something.
The real problem is when you look at cops that were exposed to fentanyl, 0 have gone down because of touching it. It's always been because it went into the atmosphere and they inhaled it. And that's the biggest threat, right? And
okay.
Right. And so a dosage unit of methamphetamine is 100 milligrams. Okay. That's just to get high, right? And like most meth addicts, it doesn't even touch them, right? But 100 milligrams. Imagine like take a sugar packet, like a 1 gram sugar packet at the restaurant, open that up, cut it into 10 even lines. One line is a dosage unit of meth, heroin, PCP, ecstasy, right? 100 milligrams, thereabouts. If you threw that in the atmosphere, you would have to purposefully work at getting all 100 milligrams into your nose, right? And even then, it just gets you high. It's not going to overdose you. A lethal dose of fentanyl is 2 milligrams. Remember that one line, you break up that sugar packet into 10 lines. One line is 100 milligrams, 2 milligrams. Just take 2%, 2% of that line, okay, and throw it in the atmosphere. Could you accidentally walk into that and inhale it? Yeah. Well, what if like, I'll give an example. People are saying it's BS. Cops aren't really going down. Man, I beg to differ. I got video of cops having CPR done on. I'm going to announce it here, man. There was a military agency that intercepted a ship that had fentanyl, and they recovered the fentanyl. And a sailor was on the back end of the ship smoking because the fantail is, well, you would know, you're in the Navy. Yeah. The fantail is where everybody goes to smoke, and it's windy back there, I guess, right? And he goes and does a squat, takes a cigarette, and his homie takes a picture of him next to hundreds of kilos of fentanyl. Because, like, I would take a picture. That's awesome, right? You're building memories. Well, one of the packages was opened. It went airborne. He inhaled it, went down, and died. It's not publicized. Nobody said anything. I only know because I talked to one of the investigators that was involved in it, and they gave me a heads up, right? And so people keep saying, oh, the cops are faking it. Man, I beg to differ. I show video after video. There's a difference between pharmaceutical, because the doctors go, oh, pharmaceutical fentanyl, we deal with fentanyl every day. Nothing ever happens to us because it's made by people with advanced degrees in a clean room with government oversight, with checks and balances. And then it's put into packaging that's tamper resistant. And in order for you to get exposed to it, you have to purposefully expose yourself. Versus fentanyl made in Culiacan, Mexico in the mountains by a dude that doesn't have an 8th grade education, that when he manufactures it, puts it into a Ziploc bag, stuffs it into the crack of his butt and walks across the border. And it's in a sandwich bag with thousands of doses. And then the cop intercepts him and then recovers that bag. The threat isn't getting it on your skin, it's inhaling it. So if you just merely put on gloves, mask, eye protection, see the theme here? Put on gloves, mask, eye protection, you'll be just fine. And if you get it on you, you wash it off and you're just fine. You can still do your job. But I think like cops are freaking out because number one, they keep getting sick from criminals. They keep getting injured from criminals. And the workers' comp system is broken. So like when you're a vet and you get hurt, you go to the VA. When you're active duty, you go to the military hospital and they take care of you. When you're a cop, good luck, man. You're paying co-pays. I'm paying $8,000 a year in co-pays. And they're not, I mean, you know how hard it is as a retiree to get them to pay for that, right? You know, you get left behind. Yeah. And so the cops are like, hey, man, and everybody treats them like crap. I mean, we're treating our law enforcement like garbage. I know everybody says, oh, back to blue. No, you're not. You know, we're still getting treated like crap and everybody's quitting and they're being replaced by people that we never would have hired before. Like, I'll give you an example. Acorn shooting this weekend. You know, the acorn fell on the hood of the car and the cop unloads. I told myself, I go, 100% that guy was hired after 2020. 2020 is when all the cops started quitting and nobody wanted to do the job anymore, right? Hired in 2022.
Wow.
Okay? And so they're hiring people that are totally unqualified. And every time something bad comes up, I already tell myself, oh, it's going to be a 2020, post-2020 guy. And so now we're hiring people. I'm not saying all are bad. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm training these guys, okay? But the post-2020 guys are immensely difficult to train, okay? And I know from my friends that are doing investigations, they're recommending don't hire and disqualify them for lying, drug use, whatever. And they'll hire them anyways because nobody's willing to do the job because they got treated like crap. My son, 4th generation cop. Oh, behind me up here, that's everybody's first duty pistol when they got hired.
Oh, really? I wondered what that was.
All right. So the one you see on the, I guess it'd be bottom left or the bottom right, that's my son's. Okay. My son was a deputy for 3 years and then quit because he's like, Dad, and this is Idaho, which proclaims to be the most pro-cop state. He's like, I hate it. He's like, everybody treats us like garbage. Working conditions suck. They're starting to hire people that shouldn't be cops. And I'm like, bounce, get out. And he's living the good life now. Right.
Well, you just imagine.
Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, just imagine in these larger cities where they defunded the police. Now they're all gone and now they're all begging them to come back. Well, you're going to have some kind of a special forces unit to go back in and take those cities back. Oh, all right. Wait, I got a new sound that I put in my things. Hold on. Tell me if it comes across. Did you hear Biden go, come on, man? Did it come across? No, I didn't hear it. Oh, too bad. I got like a little sound. Come on, man. Is Biden going, come on, man? Right? I wish it was coming out. Dang it. I'll have to work on that. What I like about it, all right. So the Democrats have not to make this political, but the Democrats have destroyed those cities. I mean, look at California. Yeah. California's unlivable, man. I mean, and the Democrats did it. And the Democrats tried to defund the police. Remember in 2020, we're going to defund the police. They came out and said it, and they did. And it backfired, right? Well, during that period when they defunded it, I had a lot of friends forced to get the jab. And so they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. They got fired. I have multiple friends that got fired for not taking the jab. My department that I came from, they had a great campaign. They're like, hey, we won't make you take the jab. If you want a job, come work for us. And so we hired tons of cops from those areas, but a lot of guys quit, right?
And they'll
That's
never
what happened in Florida.
They
A lot
found
of them came
something
here.
better. Oh, Florida's
Yeah.
got a great campaign. They're giving you a bonus to come be a cop, come from up north and come on down to Florida. They're doing it right, but these other Democrat cities aren't faring so well,
Yeah, my
because
youngest was one of the ones that was let go out of the military because he wouldn't take the jab.
and they're all begging for him to come back now too.
Oh, he's already got his phone call. You come back, do whatever you want to do. And he said, thanks, but
Nope.
no thanks.
Nope. I got a good life, man. You don't have to,
Yeah.
Yeah. Times are changing. It's not good either. And it's written in the Bible about what's going to happen. We see it happening, but we know in the end, God wins. And we know that if you're saved, that, if you believe Jesus Christ is your savior, then you're good to go. Right.
You're good to go.
And I'm good to go. I'm good to go. And I'm good with that. Right.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. Hey, look, man, I'd love to have you back on sometime if you would, if you come back. There's a ton more we can talk about.
Yeah.
That stuff that you're into and that you're doing. And this is awesome. I still have 1,000 questions. But I'm so thankful that you're doing what you're doing, Keith, because there's a lot of us out here that do support our police officers and what they do, and appreciate them keeping us safe. And every time, that's just like, so quick story. So we were coming back from this was middle of last year. We had gone north of Houston to record with Randy Beaujolais and his business partner, who was a former Top Gun pilot. He was an aggressor at the Top Gun school in the Navy, a naval aviator. They're in business together with Old 18. And so on our way back from that, we were going to Louisiana to continue to record. We were driving through the back roads of Louisiana, and there wasn't a car to be found, bro. It was like driving through Appalachia. There just wasn't a car anywhere. It was late at night, and we're talking about the podcast. And I drive through this little town. I'm not paying any attention, and there's a vehicle pulled out behind me, and I'm not, they're not following very close behind me. And next thing I know, the blues are on me. So I pull it over. The first thing I do, because I have, my truck's not a quad cab, but it is an extended cab. It has the door open. I immediately rolled all my windows down in my truck. Every window in there, turn dome lights on, and I go ahead and I pull out my concealed carry card and my driver's license and my insurance, and my hands are on my steering wheel. It's late at night in the middle of Bucktoon nowhere in Louisiana, and this cop just pulled me over, and and I've got Florida plates, and he's probably thinking, oh my goodness. So when he comes up and I hand him my license and my concealed carry card, I told him, I said, and I know a lot of people are going to say this is crazy, but I told him, I said, I do have a pistol. It's in my console, and it's loaded, but it's not chambered. He said, man, you don't know how much I appreciate it. He said, you know how many people come up here and don't have their concealed carry card? He said, you're good. Just leave it there. I'll be back in a minute. He came back, and guess what? We're talking about he said, where you headed? We told him where we'd been. Or what's your podcast about? Nothing. He said, man, just slow it down. He said, nice. I know you didn't realize how fast he's going. But if you just do the little things, they're going to listen. Last thing they want to do is have to do 30, 40 minutes of paperwork.
Yeah.
Exactly. They want to go back and there's other things I'm sure they would rather be doing.
Yep. And
let them know that you respect them and that you care about their safety. And man, they're going to treat you. Now, granted, there's probably, there's just like anything else out there. There are guys that I worked in a juvenile detention center. I was a shift supervisor for the West Virginia Division of Juvenile Services. And I told people, I said, the issues that I have inside this building, it's not with the kids we're watching. It's with the kids that are coming in to watch these kids. Because I told them, I said, you people got to check your problems at the front door. Because if you come in here looking for a fight, you're going to get one. And sure enough, they did. Always. But anyway, Keith, I thank you so much for coming. And it's good to see a fellow Christian YouTuber out there getting across a good message and keeping people informed and exercising our Second Amendment rights. And listen, before we get off here, tell them where everywhere they can find you and contact you for your training.
Yeah, so you can, if you want free training, just head over to christianwarriortraining.com. You'll see a training tab. I suggest you follow the newsletter. I put out about 2 emails a week. One's the church crime watch, where I talk about all the violent crime that happened at churches over the week. I talk about what you could do to be safer. And then I'll usually do one training topic on top of that. You can also catch me on YouTube at Christian Warrior Training. And I'm posting, man, lately there's been so much bad stuff happening. I'm posting a couple times a week now, but I'll break down incidents that occur. I'll talk about what happened. And I'll talk about what you can do. Like example, a pastor was taken hostage and then kidnapped. And I talk about, all right, you're kidnapped. This is what you need to do. And this is how I warn people that I'm being taken hostage. I've got code words that I throw out, like if all of a sudden you come around and be like, hey, Keith, what's going on? I just called you my name, right away. Ah, crap. Keith got taken hostage. And it's like for you to go, oh, okay. And then leave and then backdoor the guy. Right. So we have tips like that. We talk about everything under the sun. The biggest thing to remember, every crime victim I ever contacted in my life as a cop, every single one of them thought, I never thought this would happen to me. Yet here you are. Right. And you got to have the mindset of like, it could happen to me and this is what I'm going to do. So when it happens, you've already thought it out. Yeah.
Be intentional about it. And hey, listen, when I get us out of here, just hang on for a minute and on the back side but everybody, real quick before I get out of here, please go to forerunnerproductions.locals.com or forerunnerproductions.com to see, to check out what the latest is that's going on with Chad. I know that his short film, The Music of Eric Zahn, it won some sort of an award in Italy, and it's been selected for a screening at the Chinese something or another in LA. There's a theater
Chinese
there.
Theater.
Yeah, and it's been selected for a screening there.
Nice.
So go there and check that out. And all of our content now is being right now until we get things figured out. You'll have to go to Forerunner Productions on YouTube and then just select the playlist for Let's Talk Fortitude. Keith, thank you so much. And I'll see you here in just a minute, buddy.
All right, man.